Hello and welcome. For this video, I ranked all the Disney Channel original movies released from 2010 until 2019 based on scores out of 40. I made up criteria that evaluates the movies based on 4 categories, each ranked out of 10, which I will explain later. This ranking was actually quite hard because, despite popular belief, most modern DCOMs are actually pretty good. In fact, I nitpicked the bottom 4 in this top 10 quite a bit because I ended up with the same numerical score for them all and just separated them by what I valued more. This shows how tight the competition really was. There is, of course, my own opinion in this, and you don't have to agree at all, but I attempted to be as objective as possible. I ranked them on personal preference first, but this shifted a lot after I made an actual criteria system. There will be spoilers in this video. Here are the 4 categories. Story, the plot within itself. How interesting was the story? How easy was it to follow? Was it unique enough to captivate the audience throughout? Characters. This is both the writing and acting of the movie's characters. Are they likable and are relatable? Do they develop and grow throughout the movie in a realistic manner? After all, what's the point of a movie where no one learns or changes? Direction. I made this very general. It's the behind the scenes stuff such as camera angles, lighting choices, costume design, sound mixing, and more. Were the scenes innovative, and did the direction tell a story along with the dialogue? Basically, did it seem well thought out? There's a difference between a scene's playing out as expected in all these components and it going above and beyond to be special and still work. Finally, overall message. What does this movie leave the children with in the end? Is the message conveyed well in the movie? And, most importantly, does the message actually matter? Is it unique, or has it been told 100 times before? If so, has it been told better? Alright. Here we go. Number 10. Kim Possible. Unexpected? This is actually the DCOM with the lowest ratings ever. So how did it make it into the top 10 of the decade? I actually felt that an overwhelming amount of heart was put into this, and as an original Kim Possible fan, I appreciated its effort to make an old cartoon into a new DCOM. These are very different genres, so changes are expected to be made. I think people expected some Hollywood blockbuster despite knowing it was a light-hearted DCOM. The story itself is rather basic, which may be expected as the cartoon plots sometimes were too. As well as, naturally, very centered around Kim and her own journey into high school. She goes from being perfect to actually struggling for the first time, as many kids do. As it's based on preset cartoon characters, not much development happens, as they must focus more on being true to the original characters, who also don't develop each episode. Felt more like a long episode than a movie in that sense. However, the actors put a lot of thought into being like the characters, and I think everyone nails what a modern, live-action DCOM version of their character would be. They keep the core essence while making changes for the genre. All amazing actors, I say. The direction is the strongest point in this movie. Fight scenes are very well done. Like Kim training with Nana or Shigo vs Athena, which is based on Jurassic Park. The lighting and camera angles are more well thought out than most DCOMs as well. They are very intense when they need to be, and cartoony when they need to be too. The message isn't super clear. I suppose it's about believing in yourself and not being afraid to fall, as well as trusting your friends and giving to them what you wish to receive in return. Moral lessons may have been an afterthought here, but it is clear that Kim learns this in the story. A lot of heart was put into this movie to take an old story and make it different and new, but try and keep its core. While fans have varied opinions if it succeeded in that or not, it definitely does not deserve to have the lowest rating of any DCOM. I do think it would have succeeded better as a television show though. Number 9. Descendants. I was skeptical when I first heard of this concept, but I have to say they pulled it off nicely. The story about 4 misfits born and raised on an island of Disney villains, basically a prison, and given a chance to be better is interesting in itself. It references what we know and mixed a modern message. The kids then learn they don't have to be what their parents are and chose their passions and relationships over their shady past. Great music accompanies this story too. The setback would be that many scenes are kind of awkward, trying to push through the Disney references too hard or just being rather unnatural. The main cast of characters are quite dynamic and develop well through the movie. It's a good foundation for them to grow in the sequels if anything. The rest of the characters are sustainably less interesting except maybe Jane and Audrey. But even they get better later. The direction is good, some scenes stand out, but mostly it is as expected. The costumes make sense but are questionable in style, the set looks a bit fake. The lighting was good. There were lots of slow motion shots and a few weird camera angles, but those are outweighed by well shot scenes as well. The overall message that children are not destined to be like their parents and that people need to find their own paths in life is crossed with a lesson about prejudice and not judging people based on where they come from or what you may think of them. It's well done and the message goes through. It isn't particularly deep, but it is told in a unique way. Number 8. Geek Charming. Often forgotten to be a DCOM because it doesn't have the classic Disney actors we are used to seeing everywhere. The story is actually quite unique. A film student decides to do a documentary on the most popular girl in school and her journey to be crowned prom queen, meant to expose the popular kids as shallow. While she's too shallow, he is too cynical. He thinks she's stupid and she thinks he's gross. And, of course, they fall in love. Generic but done well. As they get to know each other, the film student named Josh starts to be more confident in himself and the popular girl Dylan learns that she can let loose and not be afraid to be herself. The story starts rather basic, the beginning is almost all prolonged awkward scenes. However, by the end, all the scenes are natural and realistic. I like to think this is a conscious choice, because the characters are learning that they aren't as two-dimensional as they thought of themselves and each other. The characters all start out rather shallow and grow throughout the movie too. But, in all honesty, Sarah Hyland carries the movie and walks the line of annoying and cute quite perfectly. She actually feels like a real person despite her superficial mindset. I think if it weren't for her being so good, this movie would be down to 10th place. Josh is an okay character but not quite as dynamic or well portrayed. Dylan's relationships are more important to the plot too. Amy is also a very good character and portrayed well. The best moments are mostly between the two of them. For the direction, I definitely noticed that the camera angles are well considered throughout the movie. Both on their own and in consideration to where the main character's camera is. They make sure to stay true to the way he was filming too, which is seen when the documentary is shown. However, the awkward moments are too long and weird. Some parts just become annoying or stupid. Luckily they go away halfway through. Also, Dylan's cheesy moments are actually funny and they overplayed on purpose because they make fun of her for it in the documentary inside the movie. The documentary tells the whole city that Dylan is more than she seems, and so does the actual movie. In the end, when she wins prom queen, she gives a monologue that reminds us this again. In this sense, the movie pushes the message a bit too hard. It also confirms that she truly believes she should invest her time in those who love her for who she is. That is sweet, but at this point we get it. They probably could have threaded the ending of the documentary in between the speech. That way we could be tricked into thinking it was just making fun of her like Dylan was. Then when Amy gives her the full DVD, we don't know how it ended until she explains it. I'm just ranting now, but I think that'd make the ending even stronger and put the message through better. Number 7. Din Brother. A sweet story about a hockey jock teen becoming less selfish and learning to do things for others after being forced into the role of Girl Scout leader to save his sister's troop. It's a bit reminiscent of movies like The Pacifier or Spy Next Door, where a tough guy has to care for kids, with a hint of Mrs. Doubtfire. Even in directional style. But we'll get to that later. The story generically unfolds, but in a way we haven't seen before. It keeps the audience interested throughout too. A key feature of this movie is the natural dialogue and likable characters, even if they are pretty one-dimensional. The girls on the troupe are especially cute. The best character development is for the main character Alex. He seems like a real person in his behavior, line delivery, and relationships. He's a lovable jerk in the beginning and soon becomes just plain loveball. He wants to do right by his family and friends. At first for himself, and in the end, for them. Direction is as expected for a movie like this, good but nothing outstanding. I do like that it's filmed like a real movie and not an overly quirky DCOM. I feel like this is one of the few you could show an adult and they wouldn't know it was a DCOM. Most aren't like this, and the ones that are mostly made this list. I may be biased because I don't like when children's movies water down the way they film things. Using camera placement to tell stories is present everywhere, why not use it in movies to its full extent? The message is very sweet about family and sibling relationships and putting others before yourself. Not particularly unique but definitely executed well. Number 6. Descendants 3. The plot is the weakest of the trilogy in itself but is a strong finish to the overall story. The villains are finally given a second chance and we truly get to see that any royal can turn to the dark side and any villain can prove themselves good in the end. However, many problems arise in the movie only to be solved within 10 minutes and, generally, quite easily and usually with a bit of a weird scene. Audrey turning evil is a good plot but handled strangely. The strongest plot point is Marle's relationship with her father and Yuma's growth. It's really nice to see these characters that we've come to love grow up and find their own way. When they interact, we see how much they've grown from the first movie and remember why we love them so much. It felt like watching old friends. I believe this is the strongest part of Descendants 3. All the good character feelings of the original but deeper because the audience is now attached. The direction is about the same as the first. The good scenes are counterbalanced by the awkward ones. There are a lot of really cringe-worthy scenes in this movie, maybe even more than the first one. However, the world building is best in this one. For example, Hades and Dr. Fasilia's locations on the island are very nice. The costumes here are also quite a bit better than they've ever been. The message is, of course, very good. The idea that everyone deserves a chance regardless of history. As well as needing to learn to become better people and forgive those who have done wrong. Plus the whole concept of fear and bias being what divides the people of a nation and causes them to turn on each other. None of this is shoved in our faces but it gets through. In the end, the development of characters and really tying together the overall message is what moves this movie up a few slots from the first one. But again, every movie before this one had the same numerical score that I only picked out through personal preference, so the rank is all very flexible within each other. Number 5. Let It Shine. This may be among the most underrated of DCOMs. Many people have never seen Let It Shine, but it is a unique story and actually primarily stars characters who are not white. The story centers on a boy named Cyrus who wants to be a rapper, but he is the son of a pastor who believes rap is the devil's music. He works at a hip-hop club that hosts dancers, singers, and rappers. One day he enters a contest to rap with Roxy, a pop star and former childhood friend. Their other friend Chris also enters and they mistake Cyrus' song as belonging to Chris. Chris likes Roxy and gets Cyrus to lie for him. Cyrus also likes Roxy. These misunderstandings and complicated lead to everyone getting hurt. That's when Cyrus realizes it's better to just be himself and speak his truth. This helps him be honest with those in his life and overcome his obstacles. This story isn't too complicated, but it is interesting enough to keep the viewer wondering how everything will be revealed rather than if it will be revealed. There aren't really any super cringy scenes either, which is refreshing. The characters are above average mostly due to the actors rather than the writing, in my opinion. The characters are written in a likable way but are a bit one-dimensional. I think it is the authenticity in the characters' acting that makes them seem more like real people that are going through real conflict. The acting is sincere, and when it isn't, that's because the characters themselves are not being truthful about who they are. For example, Bling is always overacting, but that's because he's never really being himself. The direction is rather strong and uses good cinematography to tell a story very strongly. I really noticed good camera angles, including nice shots of the settings. The lighting and background are also above average. The songs in the movie are good too. It isn't too common to hear good rapping in Disney movies, but everyone does well here. Not to mention,
this is more than a crush, more than a like more than a love.
Is from this movie. And that's not even in my top 3 for best songs from Let It Shine. Finally, the message. The message is not uncommon and is done a little better than average in this movie. Much like Geek Charming, but handled a little better in the sense that it is more innovative with the metaphors it explains it through. Rather than just acting superficial to be popular, Let It Shine raises issues of artistic integrity as well as a particularly unique point, religion. Many teens deal with conflicts between religion and passion and try to find an equilibrium. And I feel it is handled very well in this movie. Number 4. The Swap. Another somewhat surprising rank. The story itself of a boy and girl switching bodies is pretty cheesy, and I didn't even bother to watch when it first came out. However, it really impressed me when I actually saw it. They don't overdo the goofiness in making fun of the characters trying to be like the opposite gender. In fact, the main focus is on the characters realizing that the gender stereotypes put on them in the world is preventing them from coming to terms with issues in their friends and family. By having the experience of each other's families and social norms, Jack can finally come to terms with his mother's death and openly grieve about it, and Ellie can finally come to terms with the fact that her father left her family and learn that she can move on without him. It is rather beautifully done. And while there are a few cringy scenes, most of it flows pretty well and there are a good amount of unexpected moments. Besides the whole cell phone magic swap scenes, the scenes maintain a level or realism or, at the very least, comedic exaggeration. The characters are generally likable. Even the friends and family of the main characters aren't too generic, although we don't learn much about them unfortunately. I'd definitely say that the families are more interesting than the friends of the main characters. The direction is above average as there are a number of good creative shots, especially during the sports scenes. Little details are thought about too despite the goofy decom nature of the movie. The overall message is what is so strong because of how it is presented. It's unexpected and unique. It isn't just about appreciating the other gender or something. It's more about just being yourself and not what everyone expects you to be. It's also about expressing your feelings and just talking things out to solve them. It's got layers, it's contemporary and important, and is presented very well in the movie. The messages is weaved throughout the movie without trying to hit the nail too hard on the head. I didn't expect this to be rated so high, but after considering all these aspects, it has made it here. Number 3. Teen Beach 2. Overall, the plot of this movie is well thought out and very strong. They know what they want to say and they stay on track throughout. There are a lot of really good scenes, but it's a little slow to get there. The original Teen Beach was a little too random for my liking, but the sequel reminded us that this wasn't a happy summer or a magic movie world anymore. Mac and Brady are preparing to graduate high school and figure out what to do with their lives, and they begin to realize how different they really are. When their old movie character friends Layla and Tanner arrive in their universe, antics ensue to try and make them normal teens. It is a zany yet strong plot. Some scenes are a bit annoying, but the cute retro movie vibe starts to fade and the characters become more serious throughout. They too begin to struggle with the future. Layla doesn't want her story to always be that she follows her brother around until she falls for a boy. Tanner fears that he is no longer good enough for the person he was made to be in love with and who he thought would love him forever. This is a startling change from their once peppy attitudes. They grow from children to adults in just a few days. The big twist in the end is the most jarring of all. Mac tells Layla she can take what she's learned about herself and change her story in the movie so that she's not relying on others. In itself, this is a good message. However, in the first movie, Mac and Brady bond over the love of the movie West Side Story. But now that Layla has retroactively changed the movie, everything we knew in the present is different. Worst of all, Mac and Brady don't know each other anymore. Everything we've watched for almost 4 hours becomes completely erased in the characters' minds. This is revealed first in a haunting clip where, after heroically saving their friends, Mac and Brady return to the beach and don't acknowledge each other at all. One of many well-directed scenes, conveyed by the talented actors. The overall message is about doing what you want to do instead of following a plan laid out for you. This message is very well done as all characters experience it in different ways and, in the end, nothing is laid out anymore and we as an audience are left a bit lost. We don't know what will happen next after this big change. A common worry for high school graduates in general. I would say this DCOM has an ending that will linger longer than most. I sometimes still think of how mind-boggling it is. We wonder if it was for the better or worse, and how will our main couple meet in this new timeline. Number 2. Descendants 2. Remember all the good things I said about Descendants? Well, the sequel takes it all and fully realizes all those aspects. It makes the story stronger, the characters more dynamic, and the message much deeper. The story shows what happened to those who weren't picked and really digs in how horrible it was to make the children of criminals suffer for their crimes. We are shown just how bad the Isle of the Lost really is for the children that live there and how the royalty never cared. It's a well-done commentary on classism and once again makes us question what makes people bad. The story comes with a few twists and turns, especially right in the end both before and after the final battle. The spectacular character of Yuma arrives. She is super cool and perfectly acted out by China Anne McClain. The perfect mix of a tough gang leader who plans to make it to the top on her own and a teenage girl who has always been pushed aside. Plus we see our main cast develop a lot, particularly in their bond with each other. We see more about their connection with the Isle too. Evie fears getting stuck there again and feels bad for the children living there, for example. This builds up a bit to the third movie where they help bring more kids over. The direction is probably a little better in this movie too, particularly the musical numbers. I do have a few complaints about the set, which looks a bit cheap. I chalk it up to the fantasy setting requiring an authentic background and props. It's a disadvantage as only Descendants has had to contend with this out of this list. Oh, and Kim Possible but not as much. There are also less cheesy scenes. Or rather, cheesy scenes are there but they come off as cute and playful more than embarrassing. Besides, it makes the tender scenes more impactful. The talking dog plot was weird though. And finally, the message touches on the flaws in prison systems and on classism. Even the subplots like Lonnie, finally getting some character and trying to get into a sports team that claims to be just for men touch on these issues. Again, Yuma is the main selling point for this message. We aren't rooting for her, and yet we are. She doesn't want to be given a free handout to the palace, but in the end we see she doesn't really want to take it by force either. She just wants her island to be free. This message really sticks with the audience because things don't play out the way we expected in a classic fairy tale, a trademark of Descendants plotlines, but especially this one. If the story, characters, and amazing songs with killer choreo didn't leave an impression on you, the message will. Besides a few silly scenes and effects, this movie hits all the stops and hits them well. That is what turns it such a high slot on the list. Number 1. Lemonade Mouth. Honestly, this may be the best DCOM of all time. Not just the decade. If it wasn't under the stigma of a Disney Kids movie and debuted in theaters or something, I think it could be a legit classic. I'm going to talk a lot about it but I don't think I'll ever be able to capture how well it was done without causing this video to become an hour long. Just go watch it. It's a great movie. First of all, the story. Amazing story that ties together from beginning to end. A group of teenagers who are all vastly different but all dealing with their own family issues all end up in detention on the same day where they discover their love of music. The plot realistically progresses and has its ups and downs for all the characters. They all find a voice through their band and start to fight against or come to terms with certain events in their lives. It's basically like the Breakfast Bunch or the new Power Rangers except if the newfound friends just became an amazing band. There is something relatable in all of the characters from trying to uphold the expectations of your family's culture, trying to accept a new parent in your life, or trying to live up to seemingly superior siblings. They all just want to be heard in their families and find their voices with their new group, Lemonade Mouth. This makes all the characters real and easy to attach to. You are rooting for all of them. Their realism makes the cartoonish exaggeration of the side characters more reasonable as well. It's a good comedic relief. The actors portray these characters very realistically too. Overall, the story and characters are pretty much perfectly done. There is little to no room for improvement for these characters given the story and context. The direction is well done, there are scenes that are well framed to fit the mood, particularly the moments when the students live parallel each other. They go in a satisfying sequence of introductions, issues, and redemption with their families at the same time. The camera angles tend to keep the mood of the scenes. It's edited quite nicely so that the cuts between scenes feel natural even though we're juggling 5 main characters. Nothing stands out as spectacular about it, but it is better than most of the movies on this list. The message about speaking up for yourself and pursuing your passions is not particularly unique, but it is done very well due to the strength of the storyline. It really shows kids that, even if you think your voice doesn't matter, you can find friends who support you and an outlet for your emotions. And one day, people will listen. This is a movie that leaves an impression on anyone who watches. I have yet to encounter someone who did not like it at all. Again, if this were a general coming-of-age story for older children and younger teens that was released in theaters, I think it would be quite successful. Even if it just came out about 5 years earlier, it probably would have been considered a prime part of that golden era with High School Musical, Camp Rock, Cheetah Girls, and more amazing movies. Still, it earned much deserved attention and its spot as number 1 on this list. Thank you for watching. What were some of your favorite DCOMs from the past decade and why? Remember, this list is made from my own criteria and categories and is not objective truth.